Hey, I'm David. I have no idea what I'm doing. This bag from simpler times, promotional item from Windows Phone 7.
Ew, no, David.
Worked on a launch title for the phone at the time. The whole operating system failed, so it wasn't a good time. But we did get some cool free swag. I've decided it's easy, you could just put a laptop in this. But where's the fun in that? I'm going to build a PC inside of it.
Yeah, boy.
While you watch me mark out holes to drill for the motherboard, let's talk about the specs of this machine. In keeping with the theme of this ancient Windows Phone bag, the CPU we're running here is an AMD A8 6600K. This is really dumb. We're talking like Core i5 6200 sort of territory, way back from 2014. Not great.
Potatoes.
The big savior here is this motherboard. It's a gigabyte board from 2014, but it is a micro ATX board, so that's really helpful to be able to fit this in the bag. Installed in the motherboard is 8 gigabytes of DDR3 RAM. Worth noting that I found this motherboard in a cupboard somewhere. This was my wife's old PC until we upgraded her last year to a 5800X. Holes all drilled, time to install the standoffs. Alright, let's try that again. It's quite annoying to remove these because your natural reaction is to hit reverse on the screwdriver, except that just unscrews the screw from the standoff. Not very smart. I'll save you the pain of making you watch me do exactly the same mistake to every single standoff. Quite surprisingly, that actually all fit.
Numfar, do the dance of joy.
Now to actually screw the motherboard in. To mount all of these, I bought this set from Amazon. It included the standoffs, the screws, the little red washers, and it was all very, like, old school PC. It was actually really nostalgic. One thing I forgot to mention in the specs was the cooler attached to this. I was looking at the email that I had when I ordered this. It just said processor cooler. I'm not sure what it is. I'm not sure it matters. It's going in a bag. That worked surprisingly well. They're barely proud of the bottom of this piece of acrylic. Throughout this whole video, in the background, I'm mumbling to myself, I can't believe I'm doing this.
Alright, check this thing out. It actually fits. The standoffs are all nicely installed. Right, so I'm planning the positioning of the power supply. The thing is, if I put the actual jack too high, I have to cut a hole where the strap attaches. I don't want to do that. So I think if I flip it around and I do it like just this far up, I avoid maybe losing access to front audio. Not that I think I'm going to attach front audio, but you know, you never know. Got some other thing which I'm never going to use. I think it's LPT for some old school printers. Leroy clearly wants to know what I'm doing. And I've still got access to front panel. What, Leroy? So that gives me access to enough things that I need. So if I mount it here, Then I need to cut a hole in the bag and screw in these 4 screw holes into the material. That should be just fine. But I need something to stabilize the position, or at least line it up. So I think I'm actually going to use the sheet that I've been cutting out and use that to line it up.
Nothing says high quality quite like super glued polystyrene. Leroy decided to show up again. He was really curious about what I was doing. Y'all are lucky I didn't have to censor anything here. Cats have a habit of showing off a bit more than you'd like to see. More polystyrene and super glue. Look at me, pretending cable management matters inside a bag. So these are the PCIe power cables. Now, surprisingly, I could probably fit a GPU in this. Not a big one, but like something kind of mid to low range. It would actually work. That's the weird thing. I just didn't have a spare one on hand, and I didn't feel like taking my 2070 out of my gaming PC.
A few moments later.
Yeah, it was a bit of a struggle to get in there, but guess what? It fits. This really is one of the stupidest things I've ever done.
Look at this. Oh my god. It actually fits. That's ridiculous.
Now to mark out the holes I need to cut for both power and the motherboard. So the idea here was that I draw some marks on the bag and cut out. I need to avoid the screw holes because I'm actually going to screw through the material. I wanted to make sure there was airflow. Yeah, I'm actually thinking about airflow in this stupid build. Um, but so I decided to cut out a big enough gap for the power supply. And then for the motherboard, I thought like maybe put an IO shield in, but then just decided that a hole was good enough with no screws or anything. It just kind of worked. I won't lie, this was really satisfying.
How does that look? Why am I doing this? Okay. Look at this.
It's so weird. So weird.
She was not impressed.
So my strategy was to use a pen to mark the screw holes, since the pen can fit into the screw hole and hopefully make a hole big enough in the material to push the screw through, and then screw that into the actual underlying thread below. It sort of worked for most of them. Some of them I had to get the knife out and just kind of cut a slightly bigger hole, which didn't work great everywhere. So if you see me pulling out the super glue, that's just to kind of lock it all together a bit. And until you do something like this, you don't really appreciate how much fabric, even if it's not stretchy, moves. Like, just positioning these was actually really difficult. I really do love how stupid this looks, just with 4 screws holding a power supply in a bag. The next thing I wanted to tackle was like heightening this side so that there was no like restriction of airflow to the CPU. I was thinking of using this remaining bit of polystyrene, cutting off a little piece, and using that to raise up the bag. So the initial idea was to cut a little like slot in it and attach it to the acrylic sheet underneath and see if that worked. And it broke and failed immediately. Let's rewind. Okay, so plan B. I had this old CPU cooling fan. Uh, Decided to use this and double it up to raise up the front of the bag. If I create enough tension in here, this should be enough to pull it away from the actual CPU fan, as well as provide some extra cooling. Yeah, I'm still thinking about cooling in this ridiculous build. And of course, to align it inside the bag, back to polystyrene and superglue. I found it really funny that this kind of looked like a face with two little eyes and a zipper for a mouth.
Now, I have to work out which side of this push button actually causes the bridge. So I'm going to do some testing now quick. Okay, that's kind of odd that it does a crossover, but it appears to work. Okay, so I've tried to super glue the fan on the bottom here, but it ain't staying put. I think that's going to be maybe an issue, but you know, the setup is jank enough as it is. With that, I'm just going to boot from a USB. This motherboard doesn't have any M.2 slots, so that kind of sucks. I do have an old SATA SSD somewhere, but I'm not going to take it out. It's a great proof of concept. You could easily shove like a SATA drive here, or, you know, if I could afford it, I'd be buying another motherboard with M.2 drives in it, and that would be fine. But yeah, let's do this.
Are you ready, kids?